There are no people in the future.
There are no people.
There are no people in the future.
No people at all.
There are no people in the future.
Where did all my people go?
There are no people in the future.
Let me try my people call. Where are all my people? Where are all my people? I guess I'll fly away now.
Hey, everybody, welcome. Yes, it is another Monday evening, and that means it is both Raging Chickens Out the Coop Live and the Penridge School Board meeting all at the same time. I think you can feel the energy out there. Yes, indeed. Well, it is Monday, February 28th, 2022. Welcome to Raging Chickens Out the Coop Live. This is, of course, Kevin Mahoney, creator and founder of Raging Chicken. On Out the Coop Live, we talk to progressives, activists, and troublemakers of all sorts, right from our own backyards from across the country. And on Fridays, we break down the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. And you got to check out that Wednesday show with Cyril Michaleko. Cyril, of course, is a progressive columnist at the Bucks County Courier-Times, the Intelligencer. And he usually joins me, a couple times a month to drill down into Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and even international politics, which is becoming increasingly important. You can get all our shows by subscribing to our podcast on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. And you can help support this show by becoming a patron for as little as $5 a month. Just head on over to patreon.com/rcpress today and choose your membership level. You can also help out the show by heading over to our YouTube channel if you're not there already. Smash that subscribe button, like the stream for this show, and hit that notification bell so you'll know every time we go live. You can also join our Discord. Information on that is in the show notes. Check it out. We'll continue the discussion all week long. And for more PA Progressive Talk, tune into the Rick Smith Show's live stream at 9 p.m. Eastern on his YouTube channel. Look, just wherever you get your streams, head on over. Rick Smith Show is there. Definitely check out the ricksmithshow.com and check out the links to all his shows. Like, he's going gangbusters on there. I got to check his live call-in show at WBAI on New York now. It's fantastic. It's on the weekends. All that information is over at the ricksmithshow.com. And you got to absolutely, positively check out the Sisters of the Night Caucus podcast if you haven't already. They're in season 2, and the amazing PA women stirring the political cauldron behind this podcast rock the house. And they know where the bodies are buried. Yes, make sure to follow them at The Night Caucus. That's at The Night Caucus on Twitter. And subscribe to their podcast at Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcast. Attention all you gamers out there, The Game In is a Quakertown-based, black family-owned gaming store. They're friends of the show, and they've got everything from retro N64s, latest consoles, video games for all platforms, collectibles, action figures, Funko Pops, you got it. And look, and kids get discounts when they get all A's on their report card. I mean, how can you beat that? Check them out on their Facebook page and follow them on Twitter at The Game In. That's at The Game In with 2 N's. If you've got a question about a game, looking for something hard to get, shoot them a message, drop them an email at thegameinpa@gmail.com. Special shout out, as always, goes to Jonathan Mann, who wrote our intro song, There Are No People in the Future. Check out all his great stuff on his YouTube page and follow him on Twitter at SongAdayman. Again, with 2 N's, that's at SongAdayman on Twitter. And a quick show note before we jump into it. Next week, I welcome Alyssa Bowen to the show. Alyssa just dropped a great article over at Truth Out called Dark Money is Behind Women's Groups Attacking Biden's Supreme Court Pick. She's been following the dark money driving the concerned moms groups such as Moms for Liberty and No Left Turn in Education. Alyssa's a researcher at the progressive watchdog group True North Research, and that will be next Monday, March 7th at 7 p.m. Make sure you tune in for that one. It's going to be a good one. Now, on this week's show, this week's Out to Coop Live, right here, I welcome Connor OHanlon to the show. Now, we talked about Connor on the show before. We talked about work that he's done, great work that's happening over there in Doylestown, rebuilding kind of Democratic Party from the ground up and things like this. So it's about time that we had him on the show, and just in time because he is a progressive Democrat, is running for state representative in the PA's 29th legislative district in Bucks County. That's going to be a big one, folks. You know it is. Connor currently works as an auditor, a CPA, and specializes in audits of SEC companies in the online gaming and casino industry. Additionally, Connor has worked as a licensed realtor and conveyancer in and around Bucks County, which has furthered his familiarity and relationship building with local officials and professionals serving in the community. Connor has been a resident of Doylestown Township since 2007. He went through the Central Bucks Public School District from Groveland Elementary to Central Bucks West High School. And Connor is a licensed certified public accountant, as I mentioned before, has earned his bachelor's degree in accounting and a certificate of real estate from Penn State University. You know, we got to give the CV up front, folks. This is why we do it. All right, now, assuming all the legislative districts remain relatively the same after the potential court challenges coming up, Connor will be running in a contested primary in a district where the incumbent Republican representative just quit, says I'm out of here. Now, that makes the 29th and up for grabs and ripe for a Democratic pickup. The question is, what kind of Democrat? Connor is banking on his plan for a PA New Deal, for creating a strong Pennsylvania economy, strengthening our infrastructure, and protecting the rights of Pennsylvanians. You can follow Connor on Twitter at Connor OHanlon. That's OHanlon. Did I get that right, Connor?
Yes, you did.
You got it, indeed. You got to check out his website, too, at www.ConnorOHanlon.com. Connor, welcome to the show.
Kevin, thank you so much. That was a great introduction, and I really appreciate it. It's been long overdue.
Yeah, well, hey, I do what I can. You know what I'm saying? I've been wanting to have you on the show for such a long time, given the awesome work that you've been doing just on the ground as an activist and Democratic Party activist and so on. And I got to say, you know, I should have mentioned this right at the top of the thing. I saw that you were actually out there last night, kind of in the solidarity with the folks of Ukraine, which is why I've got the Ukrainian flag behind me tonight, in support of what's happening over there. Before we jump into it, what was that event like? I mean, it's looked like it was an amazing kind of just show of solidarity, people coming out and saying, we're with you.
Yeah, first, I should say, for the organizers of that event, I mean, the Rainbow Room was, of course, big in organizing that, and Marlene Prey, who runs the Rainbow Room, my friend Larissa Hopwood, or Lolly as some others know her, and I'm sure there's plenty of others. There's a bunch of youth groups and all that stuff that were in coordination in creating that event, standing up for solidarity with the people in Ukraine, with LGBTQ plus people across the world, and something that really is overlooked a lot of times is Indigenous people. The first speaker was actually somebody that was speaking up for Indigenous rights and speaking and making the connection between the American, frankly, genocide of the native population here and comparing that to what's happening in Ukraine and how the people that are being displaced. So for someone like me, it was just about being there, and it's such in a supportive role that was very important, and seeing everybody unite, and even though it was freezing.
Yeah, it was freezing. Well, you know, originally, I tell you that originally I wanted to head out there, but I was just telling you before the show, my daughter just tested positive for COVID yesterday, because I live in the insane school district that is Penridge, where masks are something that is for fantasy land. But we'll get into that in a little bit later. So let's jump into just a little bit of the background now. Now, like I said, I first kind of learned about some of your work for what you're doing in, say, Democratic Party activism in kind of the Doylestown area and beyond. But why don't I step back a little bit and give you a little kind of space here, just to kind of just talk a little bit about kind of what got you to this point, like what got you involved and decide that you wanted to kind of, you know, help kind of energize what's happening in Democratic Party politics as a Democratic Party activist, and then to, like, you know, here you go, run for this, you know, really important primary in the Pennsylvania 29th district.
So I'll try to keep everything as brief as possible because there's a lot to unpack in that question.
Yes.
So I'd say while I was at Penn State, I got engaged during the 2015-2016 election. So it's really the 2016 election, but it was really during 2015 when the Democratic primary was happening and the Republican primary was happening. You couldn't catch me on a night that I wasn't glued watching or listening to something about that election. And then obviously the outcome of that election with Donald Trump getting elected was illuminating in the most awful way possible. It was shining a light on some of the things that we don't necessarily like to address or necessarily, you know, bring to light in our country. So for me, it was like, okay, well, look, I was a Bernie Sanders guy. Bernie's campaign inspired me to do more, to say, you know what, you might at the time, like, you might be 19 years old, but you can go out and make the change that you want to see. So it took me a little bit longer than when I was in college. But the second I graduated, I went to go vote in the primary in 2018. And when I did that, I found and met somebody from Fair District's PA.
Yeah.
And from there, I was like, hey, what can I do? I'm just looking for something to do. Like I graduated and I want to get involved. And through that, I found the Doylestown Democrats. So, a week later or so, I showed up and go to the Doylestown Democrats. They say, hey, my name's Connor OHanlon. I just graduated from college. I want to run for office. What can I do?
And the head's like...
Exactly.
Yeah.
And from that day, immediately they were like, you know what, you can go do this, you can go canvass, you can go do this and whatever, right? So I immediately started working to elect Wendy Allman, who was the previous state representative in the 143rd. So I'm sure we might get into some of the redistricting and whatnot, but Doylestown used to be in the 143rd. We are moved into the 29th now, but at the time she was running to become the state representative. So that was the first campaign that I was like actually going door to door in. And that's how I learned, okay, we can really make a difference just going to talk to people. And that helped elect Steve Sanacero to the state Senate, John Fetterman to be lieutenant governor, and Tom Wolf to be governor for a second term. And I believe same year as Josh Shapiro, maybe not. That was 2020.
It was 2020, yeah.
So then right after that, that year, we had a great year in 2018, but as you are aware, and probably many of the listeners, the odd year elections are the ones that are tougher. They're the ones that really take grassroots organizing and the energy to get people out to vote. So in 2019, I decided to run for township supervisor in Doylestown Township. And that position was a very uphill battle, let's just say. Mm-hmm. In every election that I've ran for election twice, so I'll just group them in here. I ran for election twice in Doylestown Township. Doylestown Township has never, ever in the history of Doylestown been controlled by a Democratic majority. In 2019, I lost by 38 votes.
That didn't hurt or anything, right?
Yeah, 0.1%. And
That's
then
huge.
When we get to that point, right, we came this close. I didn't know what to do after that. Frankly, the pandemic then hit very shortly after. I was working 4 jobs. This is, as we talk about knowing what it's like to be middle class and working a working class, I was trying to find my way and figure things out and pay off my student loan debt that many people have, millions. Actually, we're about to hit $2 trillion in student loan debt. So I was trying to figure that out while running for this position. And guess what? I lost all 4 of those jobs because of COVID. So I had to take a step back and I had to say, what can I do? How can I move forward and make this thing happen? It just so happened that right after the pandemic kind of, kicked off per se, there was an opportunity for me to run to become the chair of the Doylestown Democrats. And when I did that, it wasn't an uncontested race. I had to actually run to become the chair, and I ended up winning. Just in the last 2 years or so of being chair, we've helped elect over a dozen Democrats. We have raised thousands of dollars. Just in 2021 alone, the Doylestown Democrats, under my leadership, helped fund $10,000 to local campaigns. That includes Tabitha Delangelo running for school board, borough council, and township supervisors across Doylestown. And then the last piece of all this was 2021. Our tax collector, he decided, for family reasons, I have to step back in August. So for those unaware, that is after the primary election. So
Right.
That means you have a very, very short window of when you can actually replace somebody and get on the ballot. So being an accountant, because in the interim period, I got my license, or I passed all the exams. I got my license. I got a steady job and working as an accountant and an auditor. But I wasn't done there. So I said, I'll do it. I'll throw myself on the ballot and I will go for this. So despite that, I ended up rupturing my Achilles tendon playing basketball. So I couldn't walk. I couldn't walk for 7 weeks.
Remember the pictures.
And yet, because this is the dedication and drive we need collectively, not just me. This is not just something that I did because, you know, I wanted to win just for myself, but it was a movement. We needed to get people out to vote. I went door to door in a wheelchair. I had someone push me, my friend Lindsay, push me in a wheelchair because we believe this is the way we got to get it done. And that's the dedication and drive that you need to win in these, these races that we're not supposed to win in. And I ended up losing. I ended up losing by 86 votes. But between 2019 and 2021, I increased my my vote total by over 400 votes. I outperformed the Democratic turnout on the county level. We helped turn out 14% more Democrats in Doylestown than the county did as a whole. So obviously what we were doing was working. And why I decided to, this is a very long answer for you, but
no, this
why
is great.
Why I decided to run for state representative is my life is dedicated to public service. Accounting is fun. And I actually have a little poster at my desk that says auditing is fun. But
okay, I'll trust you on that one.
it's to keep the positive vibes up. So, but auditing is my day job, but creating progressive change, creating a new and brighter tomorrow is my life's work. That is my passion. And yes, I am young, but I have the experience, I have the dedication, and I've proven that I have the leadership qualities to get the job done. And this really represents an opportunity to develop the party for a long time.
Well, let me just say this too about the, you say, okay, yes, I'm young. Because, you hear this kind of like people say, well, I've got this like experience and all this. But I'll tell you is that what happened, I remember back in what was it now? I guess it was 2018 when we had a really a kind of a progressive wave in good parts of Pennsylvania. And we, this has got back in the day for Raging Chicken. We had Sean Kitchen, who was kind of my co-editor at the time. He interviewed Summer Lee, Sarah Innamorato, and Elizabeth Fiedler, right? And everyone in those rooms, this was at this kind of progressive conference that we were at in Harrisburg, everyone in those rooms is basically saying, they'll never win. They'll never win. And what they understood in a way that like kind of the old kind of, I don't mean to say old, I mean, but the way that things have been done, what those three women understood in ways that the existing apparatus did not, is that you have to build density and you have to build your organizing at your base. And that's what they did, and that's how they won. And so when I look at, frankly, I look at someone like you, right, who came out through the Bernie Sanders campaign and was basically cut their teeth on grassroots organizing, small dollar donations, and actually getting out and talking to people. Not some sort of, like no kind of like, no shade being thrown to spreadsheets here, right? But you're not just looking at a spreadsheet that's kind of put out by some consultant and say, just go find these people, but you're actually going out there in the community and you're building new voters and you're building the sense that we can win. So for me, that's an asset, right? Especially coming up here and actually working in the community, building things, because I think that's really what's got to happen in Bucks County. And I'll be frank about this. People that I've had on this show, right? People that have been involved in organizing around the school board elections and things like this. When I talk to them, a lot of these folks, when I talk to them off air, right? What I hear about their biggest frustration, right, is the sense that we need to be like building organization, right? And nobody wants to do that, right? And they're feeling like they're building it from the ground up. So to have someone in your position who's actually done that work, right, has built out that organization and continues to advance, like you increase your vote total by 400 votes, that's huge when you're talking local politics. So, I mean, anybody who sees that and says like, oh, he's young, they're not paying attention to what's needed to win right now in the Democratic Party, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, that's my editorializing on this one, but that's where I come at it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I'll just say that when it comes to building up the apparatus of the party, a lot of people, when they lose a race, I mean, I'm sure you're aware, when they lose a race, they disappear.
Right, exactly.
That's not me. The adage from, Dream On from Aerosmith, you got to know how to lose to know how to win, right? I played sports my whole life. You lose all the time. You got to get back up. You got to keep going. I mean, same thing Rocky said, right? But it's, to me, being who I am, I also know that I'm inspiring other young people to do what I've already done. And you know what? They might actually be more successful down the line because of the path that I've been able to provide them. I always say this thing, but it's not a hand out, it's a hand up. It's a guiding hand to say, you know what? By the time you're my age, you could do a lot. I have the support of groups that would never, ever be engaged with other Democratic candidates. And that's, we can blame those groups, or we can listen to them. We can say, hey, what can we do to get other young people involved? I kind of joke about this on occasion too. I'm a little bit tired of answering the question, how do we get young people involved? We get young people involved by listening to them.
There's a novel thought.
Yeah, and giving them something to fight for, and something that is going to materially benefit them. I have support from a nationwide group, Teens for Change, and I've gotten support in the local for the recommendation for endorsement by the Bucks County Young Democrats.
Yeah, just last week, right? They gave you your endorsement just last week. Yep. Well, and I think like this, like you mentioned this before, is like I don't think that, there's been this tendency, and again, we weren't planning going down this road, but this is just kind of his commentary. There's been a tendency in Democratic Party, and I understand this happens, and we're talking about a really significant change in the way that our nation's politics working, the county's politics and other things are working. And there's, people who grew up, even, people like me, right? I'm a Gen Xer, right? But I teach at Kutztown University, right? And so I see kind of folks coming up. The gap between what my experience has been going through college and everything, and the experience that they have gone through already, just in terms of student loan debt, about the cutting off about the avenues for a prosperous future, right? The idea that like nobody really cares, right? About really what their experience is, that this person, they're going to tell you one thing, but they'll sell you down the road the next minute. That's a huge gap. I mean, and we were the kind of cynical ones, right? The Gen Xers ones, like we're the ones who are watching all the industry kind of close up and watching our futures being taken away, right? And packed away. But kind of what folks that have come up with you, right, that experience is huge. And to understand that, and frankly, I think that's got to be the base of the Democratic Party. And this is like exactly, you look at what you're advocating for in your in your platform, into the issues that you're foregrounding. Not only do they speak to the experiences of lifelong Democrats, right? But they're looking towards that next generation about building an organization, building kind of on that, and providing a kind of a sense of hope that we can build from. I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's how I see when I look at the PA New Deal and the rest of your platform.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I call it that. It's the reason why I call it the Pennsylvania New Deal is because we are learning from the history of the Democratic Party. The New Deal, the Great Society, the greatest achievements in American domestic policy are democratic policies. We should be proud of that.
Right.
And we should also take that history where we may have fallen short, where we may have not made it intersectional, we may not have included everybody, we may not have looked towards the future for the environment, and make those changes and say, we're not going to get rid of Social Security. No, why would we do that? No, we're going to build our infrastructure. We're going to build it in a sustainable and efficient way that will create good paying jobs with retirement benefits, retirement benefits. Yeah. That's like a shocker to hear probably for some people.
You're talking about the stock market, right? You're talking about the casinos? Is that what you're talking about? The retirement? Is that what you're talking about?
All those things are bread and butter, material benefits that we can provide for people. And I will just last point on the age piece for me, but it's very important to tie it together with the history of what I'm talking about with the PA New Deal. There's three historical leaders that I'll talk about really fast. Alexander Hamilton was 21 years old on July 4th, 1776. 21 years old.
And that dude's got a musical now, so come on.
Which Hamilton is, I've never seen the musical, but I do have a lot of Alexander Hamilton stuff on my bookshelf. But the second one, President Joe Biden, was 29 years old when he was elected to the Senate. 29 years old when he was elected to the Senate. Not even old enough yet to sit in the seat. And then the last one, I'll say, he's maybe not as historic as the others, but relevant to the Bucks County area. The last Democrat to flip Pennsylvania's first congressional district, Patrick Murphy, he was 30 when he was elected. So young people throughout history have shown that we can get things done. So we just have to let people go at it and get after these changes that we really want, and not only want, we need.
No, and exactly. And I think that, look, I mean, when I look at the politics of right now, and again, at the risk of not fully reading the audience, right? I mean, meaning like, you know, kind of the voters and the kind of districts and things like this. But I do think that, you know, the tired old lines of even saying, well, you know, he's not experienced or that he's young, it really doesn't resonate, right? I mean, it might just kind of get a couple of people's heads nodding, but it doesn't activate them and getting them motivated to want to do stuff. Right? They don't see themselves in that. All they hear is kind of like, you know, a tried, you know, an old argument about something about experience. Meanwhile, they're struggling to make ends meet, right? They're wondering about how they're going to get their kids through college, right? They're wondering if, you know, because of the pandemic, is their job going to come back? Are they going to be able to return to full time, right? Is their only hope going to be like that future job in the Amazon warehouse, right? You know, is that all we can do? Right. And I'm sorry, just saying like, you know, okay, you know, someone who's kind of built organizations, has been active in kind of building things and successful, that sounds to me like a better story to me, if you ask me. But let me ask you this. So you're talking about this, you know, you're talking about building a stronger economy. You're talking about kind of reinvesting in our infrastructure, right? And I mean, a whole bunch of stuff about this PM deal. What does that look like when you're talking to people who say, okay, you want to build a stronger economy, where you want to kind of invest in the infrastructure, and you know, people could be cynical when it comes to politicians kind of promising stuff. So what does that look like in kind of in your mind? How do you talk to voters about what that means?
Sure. There's actually two different ways that we can go about this, right? Because let's take the optimistic side. The optimistic side is the Democrats come in 2022. We come out like crazy. We get so many people in Pennsylvania elected that we flip the legislature. Now, that's an uphill battle. It starts here in Pennsylvania's 29th, and 100%. That we can lead the way here, right? But let's just say we do that. That's one way we can say, you know what? All right, now we can finally raise the minimum wage from a starvation wage of $7.25 to at least $15 an hour and tie that to inflation. We can at least say you have a right to be in a union if you are a worker in this country. You can at least provide health care, at least a public option, at a bare minimum across the state. We can do that. We can do things for the infrastructure by providing highway systems that have charging stations. What a radical idea.
How about that?
We can invest in local municipalities, which this one I think you can do even if we take the cynical route. But you can invest in local municipalities. Let's just say like Doylestown, Chalfont, New Hope, Soulbury. You can say, here's the millions of dollars that we were supposed to give you through the Biden infrastructure plan. And you can put those solar panels on your new buildings. You can build geothermal farming mechanisms to operate your energy systems within the municipalities. You can create open space. So that's all within the infrastructure and economy piece. But the last pillar of my platform too that I haven't really hit on is the human rights piece. Yeah. I did kind of talk about it in the introduction with the solidarity piece, but in Pennsylvania, I'm sure many listeners know, but in Pennsylvania, you could be discriminated against for being gay or transgender in your employment or in housing. That is absolutely atrocious and despicable. And that is something that if we get enough people elected, we can pass that. We can pass protections for civil rights and add it to protected classes. And we can protect voting rights. All of these things. And we can create racial justice in this country, leading the way in Pennsylvania rather than having to react.
How about that?
So that's the positive, right? The negative
Here comes
is
the dark cloud.
So here's
my
the
shirt,
thing.
right? This is my doom and gloom shirt, right? So let's go to the gloom, yeah.
So let's just say, you know what, Connor gets elected, but we don't flip the legislature. What can we do then? Well, I already hinted on like some of the stuff can be done in a bipartisan fashion. Now, it does become incumbent upon a leader coming back home to say, "Hey, Doylestown Township, I know you're not Democrats, controlled by Democrats, but I think you should invest in solar energy because it's beneficial to the longevity of this township." And putting pressure on those leaders because they are getting money from the state.
Yes.
It also takes leaders to come back and say, "Hey, I'll just use Doylestown because it's easy. It's easy in my bailiwick, right?" But this happens across the Commonwealth. Doylestown Township doesn't have a protection for gay individuals or transgender individuals. That takes leadership to say, "Hey, you have to pass something locally and build it back up." But it's taking someone that's going to get people. I mean, I've organized rallies and got people in the streets. Like, sometimes it takes that. And sometimes it takes people to flood a local municipal meeting. Not being violent, not being, jerks.
Just show up.
But exercising your First Amendment right to, lobbying is a bad word in this country, but to lobby your local officials. Because that's what you're supposed to do. But so that's the pieces of just getting one person elected should be one way of saying, all right, we may not pass this one legislative agenda item, but we can put pressure locally and build the party. That's the other piece. Build the party and show other younger candidates you can do it, and you can get it done a lot sooner than everyone else will tell you.
Well, and I think that's right. I'm thinking a lot about, the way that Summer Lee has approached her time in office, right, in the state, and very much talking about what she sees herself as primarily as an organizer, both inside the halls of Harrisburg and outside. Right. And she's always insisted upon bringing the kind of organizer into the Capitol Dome and not basically saying that remains outside, and doing exactly what you're saying, because once you've mobilized people and get folks that are part of an organization, not only can you say, for example, turn back and to say, "Hey, you guys need to pass this locally," but you can become a force to help garner that, right? To set up the context for that to happen, right? As part of the work that you do in the district. And I think that's that organizer mentality that we absolutely need at this point. So yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, I'm on board without a doubt. So let me ask you this, because I know this is, let's kind of talk some specifics here, what this would look like and what you could potentially say, let's talk Bucks County for a minute, right? One of the things I want to comment on this first before we move to this next point. But what you said there about, hey, look, I think you should invest in solar. I mean, watching some of these environmental reports come out, finding out that Bucks County has some of the worst air quality, right, kind of in the state, which kind of floors me, right? You're thinking about, wait a minute, Bucks County, right? But it does, right? It's not this kind of major city. It's not Pittsburgh, right, where you have the kind of, the steel industry and the legacy of the steel industry there, but because of the air quality here. And things like, solar panels can help mitigate some of that stuff while providing real concrete jobs, right? So just as a point on that. So let's talk about, what's been dominating a lot of, kind of news coverage and controversy and stuff like this in Bucks County, which has been what's happening in our school boards, right? Now I know, like, Central Bucks, for example, has been, in the national news for the controversies going on there. You're a graduate, right? Coming out of Central Bucks West, you said, right?
Yep.
Yeah, coming out of Central Bucks West. And I've heard stories of so many people who have come out of that district and say, God, I got such an amazing education. Felt so supported coming out of there. I felt I was kind of like prepared like for the world, right? And now to see what's happening there, kind of being a little bit kind of flabbergasted at what's happening. This is happening in my school district. We see this in Pennsbury. We see this we see this up in Palisades. So what's your take on some of this stuff, and what does kind of mean electing someone like you, like in the PA 29th? What does that bring to those folks who are trying to organize on the ground to bring some sanity back to what's happening in our school boards?
Well, first I'll take it from the perspective of the organizer myself, right?
Yeah.
In 2021, we helped get elect in Doylestown, Tabitha Delangelo to the school board in Central Bucks. So you talk about me being an alumni of Central Bucks. You know, when I was there in high school, not that long ago, it is a long time ago, but not that long ago.
All
we
in
read,
the perspective, man.
we read the book King Leopold's Ghost,
Mm-hmm.
and for anyone familiar, that's not the most I don't know. It's a radical book. I mean, it's in a radical in a good sense. It makes you question your understanding of history
Right.
and what's gone on and why we only learn about an American perspective or a European perspective rather than an African perspective or an Asian perspective or all of them mixed together. I don't know that some of that would fly today. You know, I don't know that we would be able to teach and learn some of these things. And frankly, when I was in high school and then I went to college and I kind of learned, hey, macroeconomics kind of lied to me.
How about that? Exactly.
I was like, supply side economics, that doesn't work. So,
and here's like the
those
mountain of research demonstrating that fact, right? I mean, seriously.
Exactly. So there's that whole piece where it's like the education system is always a work in progress. It's always going to need improvement, and it's electing people like Dr. Delangelo to the school board that knows what they're talking about, that genuinely teaches other teachers how to improve in the classroom. So that's one piece, just getting people elected. And also, I will say again, my election this year is very important, but also in 2023, in Doylestown alone, we have 2 school board seats up. So across the Commonwealth, you're going to have probably hundreds of school board elections just next year. But when it comes to education, we really need to see increased funding towards education. Like just people always want to talk about the fair funding formula. I support that, but I also think that the whole pie needs to be bigger for education. We limit ourselves and say, well, if you're going to increase spending here, we need to cut it from this other school, rather than saying, no, the whole pie needs to get much, much bigger. Education is the way that we can develop the future leaders of this country. Now, again, I had the benefit of coming through Central Bucks.
Right.
I am fighting to protect that school district because that school district, as you said, is on the verge of, maybe not collapse, but of calamity. The disorder and across, like you were talking about and hinting it with Penn Ridge, getting rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs is despicable. It is despicable, especially in a time like now where we genuinely need to teach that stuff and get those ideas out, because we're coming out of some of the most charged, I'll say racially and whether it be anti-Semitism. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. And it's just, I wish there was like a silver bullet, but it's just going to take the time, the effort, the dedication of organizing and consistently showing up.
Well, and this is exactly what I keep on hearing from organizers around these the school board elections, is needing to build something that's sustainable and ongoing. It's not a one and done election ever at this point. And I think that's the mindset that we have to be in, is that, we need to elect people right in our districts and get behind them and help organize folks who have that kind of mindset, that we're going to be building for the long haul. right? The election is not the end. The election is the beginning, right, of the next phase of this campaign, right? And the campaigning is like incessant. And I think that's absolutely essential. I think what you said is this is going to be an ongoing struggle coming forward. And, I look at the fact that we see this war breaking out in Ukraine, right? And watching how important history is, how important it is to understand what are some of the root causes of fascism, right? Not to say like, again, the easy move is when people just say, oh, it's like Hitler or like we don't even need to go in that way. Let's talk about authoritarianism and fascism and the kind of the struggle that I think that we're in both in a micro and macro level right now, whether we're going to move in the direction of autocracy, right, and authoritarianism, or we're going to move and kind of deepen our democracy. And it has everything to be able to do that, for students graduating from our schools these days to have the tools to be able to do that. They have to be able to grapple with things like King's Leopold Ghost, right? And ask those questions and have those conversations. In my mind, that's always what education was supposed to be. And I find it deeply troubling. So, when you're talking about organizing, right? When you're talking about organizing and kind of increasing capacity, right? Reaching out and listening to people, that seems to be a recipe for what really we need, not only for the PA 29th, but across the Commonwealth and, again, more broadly in our country. But.
Absolutely. And I'll throw this statistic out there. Maybe people have heard it, but after the historic election of Barack Obama to be president in 2008, the Democratic Party ended up losing over 1,000 local and state seats. Now, is that Barack Obama's fault? Absolutely not. But it falls on people like us, the people that are engaged, that want change, and know, hey, you know what? My neighbor, he might consider himself an independent, or she might consider herself a Republican, but they actually agree with what we have to say. They actually don't hold certain views that might not jive with what they perceive the Democratic Party to be. And for me, my job and my goal has always been redefining what it means to be a Democrat. And that is how you get people to join the party, to get engaged and go out and do things. Because I'll say, probably since the late 70s, early 80s, we've seen a slide away from giving middle and working class people material
100%.
benefits and material goods.
Yes.
Right? We have backed away from standing up for our principles, even though, and I will emphasize this heavily, our principles and values and our policies are popular. The New Deal is the greatest example of it in history of the United States. And we continuously run away from, you know what? We should expand Social Security. We should expand Medicaid and Medicare to include more people. We should build upon our history and learn from that and say, okay, now we're including more people. Now they see what happens when they organize. Now they know we are the greatest country in the world. And that's why we should demand better for our people and demand better for the world. Because if we can lead the way, then we can show other people how to do it.
Yeah, it comes right down to me. It's like, it's that gap between people saying we are the wealthiest country in the world, and with the next sentence saying, therefore you can't have nice things. Like it makes no sense.
Yeah, it's if you just look at it as this, if we didn't have if we lived in a red state when the ACA passed completely, right? Like we had no chance, and they didn't expand Medicaid. How many millions of people wouldn't have health care? I mean, still to this day, there are states in this country that haven't expanded Medicaid. It is free for the state. It is funded by the federal government. And because of the hatred and frankly bigotry towards the president, Barack Obama, that passed that bill, they are letting people die. They are choosing to let people die. Now, if we don't have a majority, again, we can't pass everything that we want, but there's always something. There's always a ground to fight on. There's always something to push the boundary and say, you know what, Republicans, I know you think you don't support this, but let's come and figure something out here and say, look, maybe I support a public option, you support something, I don't know, somewhere over there. But we can at least, let's just say in theory, like we were in 2011, let's just say this is a time that you should expand Medicaid because you are actively helping thousands of people get healthcare access. We never know. Like right now, the Republicans are holding up that infrastructure spending,
Right.
like I said. So you are actively choosing to have people get sick from their water, potentially sick from their air, as you were talking about, and die. These are things that are material. They can be actively felt by the population of our state, and the leaders are choosing which things to do and which, frankly, mostly which things not to do. And when you talk about authoritarianism, the GOP in this state is
remarkable,
sliding rapidly towards that authoritarianism to try and throw out democratically elected leaders, whether it be Governor Wolf or whether it be President Joe Biden or whatever comes up in the next couple of years. They are looking to actively limit people's the most sacred right in this country, the right to vote, because they don't want, and frankly, they are afraid of the will of the people.
Yeah, 100%. You know, when we started Raging Chicken was back in 2011, right after the midterms in which the Tea Party took over. And then we saw the Wisconsin uprising kind of in response to the austerity measures that were brought in after, following on that wave. And we saw it coming. We saw it coming to Pennsylvania. And we're like, you'd talk to people that were normal political folks, right, within Pennsylvania, and they were like, that's Wisconsin, that's not going to happen here. We're like, it's coming. And then we saw the Alex Exposed stuff, which we saw that there's a playbook, right? And we have to understand that we're in this fight. And in Pennsylvania, there's been a little bit of a slow roll on that. So we haven't seen the explosiveness that we saw that in, in Ohio or in Wisconsin. But it's come nonetheless. And we're at the other end of that now, where you find that, we've got, Pennsylvania's got one of the largest, next to Florida, largest number of people that were there at the January 6th uprising. We've got kind of a number of people from Pennsylvania, including some state legislators who are now going to be indicted, right? Doug Mastriano is going to have to go down for the January 6th Commission because of involvement in that. We see what's happening in the kind of they want to get rid of Daryl Metcalf, right? From the craziness. So what do? They put him on the environmental committee where we can stop what's happening in environmental justice. I mean, this is the direction that things have gone, and it doesn't look like it's getting any better. And I think that, I don't know, I'm hoping at least that people are at the point where they're starting to see that the Republican Party is increasingly becoming a problem, right? Now, for people like me, right, Republican Party has always been a problem, right? But there's a difference between having people that you disagree with, right, and that you're willing to fight over policies and ideas, and people that are really kind of in a separate world, which is about maintaining power, right, and increasing divisiveness in order to maintain that power. And that's, in my mind, that's really where we're at this point in the state. So.
Absolutely. And frankly, I think it was Noam Chomsky that said that the Republican Party is the greatest threat to humanity on earth. And that's, that's a bold statement. That is a bold statement. And you're right. It's not like we're talking about Dwight Eisenhower Republicans. We're not talking about the radical Republicans of the 1860s. We're talking about a party that is actively trying to suppress people's rights. They are throwing out the Pennsylvania Constitution left and right. Like, let's just address that issue too, because every year people are showing up to the ballot, and they always put it on the primary ballot,
of course.
And yeah, because there's less people to vote. Mm-hmm. And they actively phrase things so that people vote in the affirmative. So when they want to say this year, get rid of a woman's right to choose, they're going to put a amendment that says blah, 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 blah.
Ensure women's safety and medical care.
Right.
There you go. Right. I can write their titles for them because they've been doing it for so long.
Exactly. And the way that they do it, then it passes by a constitutional amendment. So they don't even have to, so it skirts the checks and balances that our government is supposed to have, because they don't care about democracy, they don't care about the history of this nation, and they don't care about the Constitution,
Right.
whether it be the Pennsylvania Constitution or the United States Constitution.
100%. Well, listen, I've got a feeling that this will not be the last time I speak with you. And which kind of brings me to this. I mean, I think that, listeners to this program I think, have been in part brought to this program in part because of looking for kind of opportunities to kind of build kind of progressive movements within Bucks County and kind of beyond, have been active in organizing and working in the district, and are looking to support candidates that are going to kind of carry forward that kind of organizing model. So people are listening to this and they're saying, okay, all right, you're official, you're in, right? You were the first to announce, right? How can people get involved with your campaign? Where can they go? Do you have any kind of events that are upcoming? What can you tell folks about how to get involved?
So as of today, there is a bit of up in the air when it comes to petition signings, but that is going to be the biggest first thing that you can help, whether it's me or, like, let's just say you're in another county or whatever. Getting people on the ballot, that is a tremendous grassroots effort, but I need 250 signatures. If you can help me get that would be amazing.
Let me stop you right there, because we did get a chance to touch on that before I let you give the full plug, right?
Sure.
So the district, right? So it seems like we have relatively stable maps at this point, except there are still court challenges. There's time for court challenges, and you can't gather petitions quite yet. Is that correct?
Yeah, only statewide and Congress can.
So how has this impacted your race in terms of, like, the shifting district lines? You mentioned this earlier in our discussion, be 143 to the 29th. What does that mean in terms of for where you're going to be organizing, if assuming those lines hold?
So quickly, I will say it's Chalfont, New Britain Borough, Doylestown Borough, Doylestown Township, Buckingham Township, New Hope, and Solebury. That's the entire district right there. That's just a nice little strip of basically of the Central Bucks area. It goes a little bit, north, and it should be a Democratic district if we get somebody that is willing to put in the time, the effort, and go and talk to the voters. And I obviously think that is me.
100%. So where can they go? What they get involved? You need petition signers. I assume that you're going to need people to kind of man the phones. I assume that you're going to need door knockers. I assume you're going to need people just to kind of help out and getting the word out, working social media, and in kind of all aspects of your campaign.
Absolutely. So like I said, this is a grassroots campaign. So if you see something that's tweeted, it's probably just me doing it. And it's good to get, because, look, I'm not a millionaire. I'm a working class person like the majority of people in this district. I'm a working class person like the majority of people across the Commonwealth. And it takes a lot of grassroots effort. And it takes a lot of, I'm going to do this myself and I'm going to get this done together. So when you want to come and help, you can sign up on my website. It's ConnorOHanlon.com. You can just say you want to volunteer. I'll reach out to you, or somebody on my team will reach out to you, and we'll get organized. So the first thing will be petitions. The second thing will be, depending on how things shape up with the endorsements and whatnot, will be just regular canvassing, door-to-door canvassing. We'll have phone banks. We will have events coming up. I'm sure once we have that, the problem is that once we have until we have the petitioning period, we won't have events set up yet.
Yep.
I will also plug the 29th State Assembly District has a debate forum this Thursday on March 3rd. So if you would like to hear that, it's going to be on YouTube. It'll be live streamed, so you can hear me in comparison to the other people running. And
who's putting that on?
The 29th State Assembly District.
That's great.
I'll get you the link for sure.
Fantastic. And I'll put that in the show notes for people that have easy access to it. That'd be great.
And the last thing would be going over to ConnorOHanlon.com, and if you can afford it, contributing If it's $5, you can make that a monthly contribution of $5. If that cup of coffee instead you want to help a progressive candidate get elected, that goes a long way. And if you can afford to give $25 or $29 to help flip the state assembly district 29, that is how we get things done. Because I might not have the deep pockets that other candidates might have. I might not have millionaire friends that are just looking to have a little pet project. But this is the work that needs to get done. This is the grassroots organizing that we need to do it. And look, I'm getting closer and closer every day to 100 individual contributors, and it's only been about 2 months. So we gotta juice that up, but that's how we get it done. So if you can afford it, ConnorOHanlon.com.
100%. Well, hey, Connor, I appreciate the time. I know this is a busy time of year for you with the tax season well ending. So I appreciate you taking the time. And man, I wish you all the best in this campaign. We're going to be kind of getting the word out as best that we can over here. Want to make sure that, think about like this too as well. Connor says he might not have those like deep pockets where he can shell it out. But frankly, if we're going to build a movement, if we're going to build a progressive organization and support a candidate, that's not where the money should be coming from to begin with, right? We should all be kind of chipping in and support it from the base up. So, Connor, listen, I wish you all the best, and man, I'll certainly be following the campaign. We'll be talking more kind of down the line. I appreciate it. Go on and please check out Connor's website. You can check him out at ConnorOHanlon.com, www.ConnorOHanlon.com. Did I get that right? Yep, there you go. Make sure you follow him on Twitter. That information is all going to be in tonight's show notes. Connor, thanks so much for joining us. And man, we look forward to a great few months ahead of us, I guess.
Thank you so much for having me, Kevin.
Hey, you got it. Hey, everybody, thank you for tuning in tonight. Appreciate it. Listen, one little thing that you can do right now, right? You want to help out, right? You get this show, share it with your friends. Get that out there on social media, right? Spread the word so we can elect some progressive right here in Plug Step. Talk to you soon. See ya.